Hi, my name is William Beam with Suburbia Press. Today, I want to take a look at several options you may have if you're planning on starting a course site, a discussion or community site. And I've been doing this for about the past decade. I've tried multiple solutions. Each one had its pros and cons. And we're going to take a look today through some software as a service platforms that do this, and also a WordPress solution that does this. And I've brought that up before. The WordPress solution in this case is called FluentCommunity. So why don't we start off with this one? And it's called Circle. And this is kind of the one that really set the template that everybody else is trying to follow these days. And they're calling themselves the complete community platform. It's very popular. And you can see that it is a lovely looking environment. You know, they've got your logo over here, a title, and they've got, different links over here to get started. The courses, membership, they can have discussion areas. And you can see what the discussion looks like as it's kind of automatically on their webpage going back and forth, where you can like and comment and it'll show you things. They also handle events. You can see up here at the beginning. So not only discussions, but events, live, courses, chat. So basically you can chat between the members. And of course you can see a list of the members. Then you can see trending posts. And like I said, this is the one that really seems to have set the standard for creating a thriving community. And I've never been a part of a Circle community. I think that Pat Flynn started off with Circle some years ago, and I presume he's probably still using it. So I have no reason to think that it's not a good community because so many people are copying it. So we can see the discussions tab. If we go over to events, this is kind of a nice thing where you can have events that show up inside of the community. You can go live inside of the community. You can have courses. You can do chat and have discussions that are going on with people. And of course, you can see some of the members that are in there. It's a beautiful site. And one of the nice things is it keeps everything in one place. A lot of the other tools I've used in the past didn't have all of these various features. So you had to go outside of your community to do something. So for example, if you wanted to have a discussion, you ended up going to Facebook groups. A lot of people don't really care for that. There's various reasons for that, but as a site owner, you don't want to send your audience to someone else's community. And Facebook is someone else's community. And there's a lot of distractions there. And that kind of keeps people, that go into your community. And then next thing you know, a message pops up. Oh, so-and-so is online. Or let me go chat to them. Or here's an advertisement. Facebook groups are not really that good as far as discussion places anyways. So I think Circle really deserves credit for kind of breaking the mold of what the old sites were like and bringing things in here. And of course, you can get started simply. You can engage your audience, make money, and scale up. Let's take a quick look at their pricing. This is the issue that you're going to find with software as a service platforms like Circle and some of the other ones we're going to mention. They'll start off with a pricing plan and they will escalate. And you'll notice that there are features that are in here. And then if you want to take advantage of other features, well, you need a more expensive plan. So this business plan is more than double the professional plan. So you get everything in a professional, and then you get a number of other things in here: branded email notifications, content copilot, automated transcriptions, activity scores. So these things are nice to have. And then you can see that they've got another one, Enterprise, for business people. One of the things that strikes me about this is custom single sign-on. In other words, they can integrate this with your, let's say if you're using Active Directory, you can integrate this with another identity provider and do single sign-on. And then up to 10 admins and 100 moderators. It doesn't really say how many admins and moderators you get over here, at least not that I'm seeing. This is something that you ought to be concerned with if you have multiple people on your team who need to be an administrator. If they only have one administrator or one moderator log in and you've got to share that, then you never know who else may be using it. You can't tell who did what. And 10 in an enterprise environment is really not a lot to have for that. So that's kind of a limitation I see with software as a service, is they don't give you enough accounts to really manage the thing if you're in a team environment. All right, let's take a look at the next one. All right, so the next environment is Skool. I am a member of a community in here, and you can take a look. You can create a new community, discover other communities, and it'll show you what they can do this for. And it's really a pretty simple interface here. Let me go ahead and log in and show you what it looks like from the inside. Because just going to Skool.com, one of the things I don't like is they don't really show you what their pricing plans are. I guess we can create on this. You can create an account and so forth. But let's go ahead and take a look inside of one of the communities. All right, so this community belongs to Adam Anfroy. You may have seen him on YouTube. And it used to be Blog Growth Engine. Now he's changed it around a little bit. But honestly, it's a nice community. I don't think it's as visually stunning as Circle is, but it works and it does things very well. So you can see that you've got your community, you've got your classroom, so there are different classes that go on here. You've got a calendar, so whenever there are events that are coming up, that's nice. You can see the members, and you can also see leaderboards, and you can see that there I am. And then there's a little bit of about page there. So let's go back to the community and just show that it's very easy to find discussions. You can see it's an active group where they've got a lot of comments on some of these things. These are pinned posts. So if you've got something that you want to stick to the top, you can do that. It's not as feature rich as Circle, but it works and it's functional. All right, the next one, I do have this service for myself, and this is called membership.io. It used to be Searchy, and they've changed the name, and I think that was last August. So they've kind of changed this around a little bit. This is another community that wasn't a community for the first few years that I used this. I think I've been using Searchy maybe 5 years or so. It was last August 2024 where they finally added discussions. And the discussions look nice. But let's take a look at the pricing. So this is set for annual. And you can see that they have different plans. So creator, and you get a few things. They've got a search AI and Copilot. Basically what Copilot does is it creates like a chat GPT or a generative AI for your content. So when you upload a video or audio or something to the membership platform, that gets transcribed automatically and that gets fed into their Copilot AI. So you can put in different content integrations. Now, one of the things about these integrations, there are a few of them that work with this platform. A lot of the rest of them are going to require Zapier. Also, they do video hosting. So you can see there's 50 plus hours of uploads on this plan, but you don't get the website, which they call a hub. In order to do that, you have to come over here to the start plan, which again is much more expensive than the creator plan. So then you get the community, and also they don't charge you transaction fees. In other words, if you're going to monetize what you're planning on doing here, you can have unlimited members. You still get the same amount of uploads, but you get one membership hub, one website essentially. All right, so that means you've really got only one person logging into your account and you've got one website. If you want to do development, like you want to do a sandbox environment, you don't have that. So the next thing you need to do is go to the Grow plan, $100 a month really. And that's billed annually. If you switch this back to monthly, you see how these numbers change. So that's almost $120 a month if you're doing it month to month. And now you start to get more features, content automations. They add some gamification, and now you can customize your hub branding. So instead of having the membership logo on there, you can put your own logos. They have some template hub designs they'll put on there. You can create custom member profiles. You can have email white labeling. Basically, when it sends off an email to someone there, it doesn't come from membership. It can come from your brand. There's the AI chat plugin, more uploads. So instead of 50 hours, you get 250 hours. You get 3 membership hubs, and you get 5 team members. So that's getting better. 5 is still not a lot. I didn't like 10 for an enterprise level. If you want to get that much, you need the scale plan. So you've got a dedicated customer service rep. You've got webhooks in case that helps you integrate with something else. 500 hours of uploads, 10 membership hubs, and 10 team members. My plan is actually similar to Scale. I actually signed on when they were starting up something, so I've got a lot of unlimited sites, unlimited uploads, and so forth. They really wanted to try and sell you an upgrade a while back, which reduced your stuff to this plan. which I didn't take because the word upgrade didn't seem to work with having fewer resources. You can see they've got a library. That's where your video and audio can go. The hubs are your websites. There's an AI chat plugin. They have a mobile app, and that's a really nice feature where you can get people online and they have a mobile app customized for your platform. And then if you look at integrations, the integrations that come inside of the platform are pretty simple. So for example, if you do Zoom, well, you don't do Zoom inside of the membership platform. You can set up your Zoom call. It will automatically import the recording when it's done and put that in your library. You can have your Google Drive screen recorder. You can have podcasts. And then you can integrate all these other things. So for example, for monetization, you can have Stripe. If you want YouTube videos to automatically import, you can do that. Same thing with Vimeo or Wistia. Most of your integrations, however, are going to come from Zapier. Your email isn't included in here, but they do integrate with Kit, which is formerly ConvertKit. And that works, very nicely. If you're using a different email platform, then you're going to be going with Zapier. If you want to do a lot of other custom integrations, you're going to do that with Zapier. That's going to be another additional cost because even though there are some free things you can do with Zapier, quite honestly, my experience was working with Zapier meant that in order to do what you wanted to do, to automate things, meant that you needed to have a paid plan with Zapier. So this community, I want to show you an example of what they do. And it's really bothered me for a while that they didn't have a place for discussion until August of last year. And that's because one of the co-founders of this platform, Stu McLaren, who also runs the membership experience, one of his sayings is, they come for the content and they stay for the community. I thought, well, we've got this platform. I had it for years and there was no community invested. Well, that's changed now, and we're going to take a look at that. All right, so this one, FluentCommunity, this is a WordPress plugin. I have tried WordPress plugins before. This one is different, and I'm going to tell you what happened. I've used BuddyBoss, which is kind of a platform and theme, and quite honestly, even though it looked nice, they also tried to copy Circle. The blogging part of it had very strict limitations of how you could make your blog look, assuming you wanted to blog. I think the community aspect looked nice, but quite honestly, it was slow. They also have a custom app that they will build for you at an additional cost to go with your community. But the problem is they're using the WordPress database, and there's a lot of activity going on in that database, and it slows everything down. So BuddyBoss, although I used it for a year or two, I ultimately moved away from it. And that's kind of when I went to Searchy, which is now the membership platform. This, however, FluentCommunity, I'm just starting to work with it over the past few months. And it is fast. They're not using the WordPress database. They've got their own filing system for how this is going. It is lightweight, it's fast, and it's also based off of the Circle platform. So we'll take a look at some of the features here. So you've got community and learning management systems. Now, it doesn't have as many learning management system features, like if you're going to use a plugin like LearnDash, and you could have LearnDash on the same site, but not necessarily in FluentCommunity. So I'll show you what it looks like for the courses and what you can do. I think for most people, it'll be sufficient. For some advanced things, it may not work for what you want to do. But you can have your community dashboard, spaces, which are areas, and underneath that, you can have either discussions or courses. And also, we've got chat. So let's take a look at pricing. Right now, they still have lifetime deal, which means basically you pay once for this, and then you don't have to pay again. They will provide you support forever. The company behind FluentCommunity is called WP Managed Ninja. They do this with most of their products, and I've gotten a number of lifetime deals and never regretted it. So they currently have a single site license for $199. If you remember when we looked at some of the other plans, you could pay this much in a month for one site. 5 site licenses for $399. Again, different domains, lifetime plugin update, priority support, and all features included. In other words, if you buy the less expensive plan because you only need one site, you still get everything. It's not like you have to escalate your way up through the pricing point. These price points are really based off of the number of site licenses that you want. And as I said, right now, it's lifetime deal. When they switch over to not monthly, but annual payments, it's probably going to be around here. They may escalate the price. I don't know what they're going to do for pricing. But instead of spending this much money once, you'll spend this much money every year, or more if the price goes up. If you want 50 site licenses, let's say that you're building community sites for customers that you're going to support, and then they just run the community, you can buy a lot of licenses, and that way you can offer this community as a service, and you can just do this. You can pay $50, for $100 a month for 10 months, or you can make a one-time payment for $949, and that gives you, again, a one-time payment, flat $50 off, lifetime license for 50 site licenses. You get everything included with each plan. So you've got regular plugin updates. One of the things I like about this, and I'll go over some pros and cons later, is WP Managed Ninja updates their software regularly, usually every month. And you can see that we've got a number of different folks, pretty much on every one of them, who are kind of giving their testimonial for it. And then you've got a money-back guarantee. If for some reason that you're not pleased with it or it's not a right fit for you, you can try it out. All right, so let's take a look inside. All right, so we already looked at Skool. This is the community site for membership. And you can see where they've got discussions going on. You can see how many members they've got in here. And you can see a little bit more. So for help, if you want to contact. In other words, they can keep people understanding what the rules are. And that's a nice little touch. It's easy to start a new discussion. So you go in here, you put in your title, and then you can add attachments, an image, or add a video. And what you see is this is under all posts. Now you can have, I think, different sections or segments on most of these, but that depends on the space you're in. So spaces, all posts, you can go into a general chat, and then that way you're only seeing things in the chat. If you're looking to talk about product updates, then you can put something in specifically in that space, and they've got a feedback. So if anybody's got, well, there I am. So any plans for direct messages? And the answer was positive. Yes, they do plan on that. They don't have direct messages between users right now. You can also go take a look at their Video Academy. So this is basically what their course portal looks like. This is a playlist. This is a featured video. And you can see this is what your hub will look like inside of the membership platform. So you want to look at feedback. This takes you to an external site. It's got their logo up there, but it's not really their site. So if I come up over here, it's got their URL. But what this is on is a platform called Global Feature. They don't have this built in. It's nice that they have this. The other sites I looked at didn't have something like this where you can kind of upvote. So you want to have the ability to have images within text, and if you like that, you can upvote it. If you want to have finding comments, if you want that, you can upvote it. These are what's trending. If you want to look at the top things that are over here, you can see these little tags. Something's planned to do, something's in development, and you can just see how many people are voting up for them. And then you can also see the new ones over here on this tab. So that's a nice feature. You can take a look at the roadmaps. We're just going to look at the main one. And this is kind of like a Trello board or a Kanban board. You can see what's in review, what's planned, and what's in development. So that is a nice feature. It is not inside of the platform. This is a paid service that they're using that they've linked and they've branded, but it would cost you extra to do something like this. Then the other tab over here, we've got release notes. Again, this is on the Global Features platform. So they've just simply used another subscription service and added this in here. So you can put links to anything that you want to on the menu, but this is not something you're going to find when you buy membership. It does not include these features. So that is something external. Okay, so let's take a look at the FluentCommunity space. This is the vendor. They've put in their own discussion, and you've got a main feed, which is going to include all these various product discussions. These are basically Spaces. So if we click over here on Spaces, you can see that they discuss some of their products, Fluent Boards, Community, and FluentCRM. Then there's a general and say hello. This is kind of by default. They have these things over here in the getting started area, and then they've got a general area for any kind of discussion. And people can go in here and put in what they want to. So I've got a question in here, which I've got the answer to now, which is apparently you can't do that. But that's okay. There's a really good space in here for having discussion. So if we look at FluentCommunity, again, you've got different categories for within the space. So you can only see the announcements. You can see any bug reports that people are putting in, feature requests. These are customizable. You can make these what you want them to be. Again, you can have these any way you want. Like you can put something about. There's the lifetime deal that we discussed. And this site is public. So any site member, you have to be logged in order to see what's in here. And then you can see a public group. There may be some private groups and there may be some secret groups. What's the difference? Well, a private group is something where you need to be invited inside and you can request access to join. A secret group, you don't even see. So for example, they have a VIP group that is a secret group. I'm not part of it, so it does not show up on my part over here. So my account doesn't show that way. So we've taken a look at posts. You can see members and you can see chat. So this is like a group chat. And then if you want to do a message, you can search for, instead of a group, you can look for somebody who's a member in here and just do discussions that way. So let's click on the leaderboard. This is a little bit of gamification. And again, this comes with the product. So you can see what your levels are. If it's important to you, you can disable this, I think, if you want to. And you can see last 7 days, last 30 days, and all time. And this gentleman over here is the CEO of WP Ninja. He's constantly in the community, so that's why he's really on top of the leaderboards all the time. But it's a good idea if you're going to do leaderboards to make certain that you have different categories, because if you only had all time, the people who were there the longest would obviously, and participating, would be at the top. Whereas every 7 days, somebody who's new that comes in has a chance to get in there. Okay, this one called Roadmaps. This links to one of their other products and plugins. So they have this item down here called Fluent Boards. It is kind of a Trello thing, but they also have within that, if you get the professional version, Fluent Roadmaps. So you can look at what the roadmap is, and it looks very similar to what we were just doing on the membership site. So you can see what's been submitted by users, what they're considering implementing, and these are the ones they've decided, yes, we're going to do. And you can see there's a mobile app for third party, and they're working with a different mobile app company. So that's not out yet, but you can see what they're planning. Then you can see what's launched. These are things that they've already completed. Again, you can see where people have upvoted these, and direct integration with Fluent Forms. I know that's in there. And the login, sign up screen, customization. So those are all good things. And if you want to see everything in the various stages, you can see this. And then down underneath, you can see, when it was created, who's posted over here, how many comments, and then this little tab over here tells you if it was launched or if it's planned or one of the other stages that they have. And that is what this looks like. If you want to run FluentCommunity on your own website, you need to have a server with enough capacity and space. That's really going to be a virtual private server or a dedicated server if you want to spend the money on actual hardware, with at least 4 gigs of RAM and 2 CPU cores. Do not try to run this on shared hosting. So if you go get an account at Hostinger or HostGator or WP Engine or SiteGround, those standard accounts were not designed with enough resources to run production software like this. I'm running this on my server that I've got with xCloud hosting. I'll have a link to that in the description below, as well as all these other products. And it's working great. It's fast, it's easy, it's flexible. So I just want to put that in mind. If you're going to run this, you need to have enough resources. The things that we want to look at next is, this is where I am just starting to build my own little community over here. So you can see welcome, start here as a trending post, which is honestly the only post. And you can come down here to settings. So we're going to take a look at the back end. And there are tons of things you can do for customizations. And you can decide who's going to be a manager. You can change your email settings, who's it going to be from, and which notifications are going to go out. And I won't go on down the list because I'm going to do future videos on this. You can also manage your courses. If you don't have one, you can click on create your first course and you can put this together. And really, when you create a course, it is really a series of modules and lessons. You can have these set up where it's self-paced. People can go through them whenever they want to. You could have them kind of drip out based upon the date that they started. And this is based on module, not on individual lessons. So let's say you start this module and they say, okay, you've got 1 week to do this. Then next week, the other module appears once you've completed things. And then you can also do them where you schedule when the courses come out. So if you're doing like group interaction, you don't want the new courses to show up until it's time, you can do date scheduling. So there's a few different opportunities there. If you wanted to do where a course does not appear until the previous course was completed, you'd have to do a single lesson in a module. It drips out by module, not by lesson. So that's how you would manage that sort of thing. And you can come over here. You can go into a night mode if you like that. This is where the chat is if you're going to have a chat. And then for your own stuff, you can see what your spaces are. You can edit your profile. You can put in all sorts of things over here. You can put in links to where people can get to you. And since I'm logged in and I'm the administrator here, you can put in your CRM profile. So I use Fluent CRM on the back end with this. I mentioned that this works with some of their other plugins. You may not want to use Fluent CRM for your email, or maybe you do because I'm using it. But the free version of it comes with automations, and that will allow you to automatically create some accounts, add somebody to the space, do things like that. It works with Fluent Forms, which you could also use Fluent Forms to build a registration, a login, or a payment page. That's kind of a nice thing to do. So you can sell access to the whole environment, or maybe you have a course that's going to be for sale and you have a area right here and maybe you don't want that to be for free. You can associate that with a paid access. So that's kind of nice too. And some of these things are going to work. As I mentioned, the thing where you were seeing the roadmap, that is a product called Fluent Boards. And they've also got an authentication thing that's free called Fluent Auth that helps you redirect and keep some security going. It's got a couple of social things, so you could log in with a GitHub account or a Google account if that's what you want to implement. They don't have Facebook or anything else like that, but those two are there. They may add to that in the future. Who knows? But that's really what this interface looks like. So let's take a look at some pros and cons. All right. For this, I am looking specifically at products that I own. So I own membership and I also own FluentCommunity. So I can kind of give you a firsthand experience with that. So the pros for the membership site, no maintenance. It is software as a service. They take care of maintaining all the servers. They do the software updates. You don't have to do any of that. It includes video hosting and searching. So in other words, as I said, it used to be called Searchy. The idea was that you would upload a video, it would automatically transcribe it, and then you could search for the place in the video based off of that caption where you could see the answer to your question. That was the whole idea when they started up. They now have an AI chatbot that's generated with content that you created. So in other words, if you've got all these videos up there and maybe you've put in some articles or some audio, it has all of that transcribed and it can use that as a knowledge base for people who want to search what's going on. I'd say their support team is very friendly. I have always had excellent results from the friendliness of their support team. They take about a day to get back in touch with you. That's not surprising. I see the same kind of response time from many others as well. But they're friendly folks. I'd say the user interface to build your website for the courses and memberships is pretty easy to use. You can put in pages, sections on the pages. You can have columns, left and right. You can have sidebars. and it's easy to integrate your videos in there, kind of as we just saw when we were looking at the membership site. There is a discussion area now, and we saw that as well. They didn't have that until August of last year, but now they have it. It looks good, and I'm pleased. That's definitely a pro. If you're looking at something, let's say like Teachable, I had courses there for a while, no discussion area, and you want to have all of that kind of in the same place. All right, so what are the cons? Well, limited user accounts. And I don't mean that you're limited by your students or members. You're limited as to the people who can log into your account and perform work on it. I do service work for people to help them build out their site or arrange things around. And often I have to get their credentials because they only have one user login. That's really not the best way to do things. So limited user accounts, as you get more expensive plans, they have more accounts, but that's something to keep in mind. Limited expansion and integration. I showed you what their integration options are, and you really end up having to use other services if you want to expand. So for example, if you want to have lives, sure, you can do that on Zoom. It will integrate with Zoom, so it'll download the videos, but you still have to come up with a calendar. You still have to launch the Zoom meeting outside of the membership site, and there are other things that just simply don't work within your membership site, like the roadmaps that I showed you. They're using another service for that. No sales pages. To me, this is really an enormous one. Your hubs can be public or private. They cannot have a public page, which is where you would have your sales page, so people can come along and sign up and register. So in other words, unless you're giving it away for free with their default login and registration, your private site doesn't have a way for people to pay unless that, or really to give them a sales page to convince them to pay. You need to put that someplace else. Their recommendation is to use Kit, which gives you landing pages that you can monetize, and then it can automate things in the back end to provision your customers. And I would say that their development and release of new features is slow. So I signed up for Searchy, which is now membership, several years ago. They only brought out discussions last August in 2024. So 4 or 5 years of being a member there and never had discussions until, less than a year ago. That was really slow. There are other things that you'll see on their roadmap that have been there for quite a while, and some things don't get released. And let's take a look. Advanced features require the most expensive plan. So we talked about that. As you look for more advanced features, you have to spend more money. And unfortunately, that's one of the things I sometimes tell clients. They say, oh yeah, Searchy or membership can do this. And then I say, yes, but you don't have the plan that allows you to do that. So if you want community, you can't do that on the starter plan. You've got to go the next level up. And then if you want to have the hubs that can do these other things, then you've got to go up a level before that. Next thing you know, you're spending $120 a month. And this is something else. It requires Cloudflare DNS for a custom name. Here's why. They had something on their roadmap to add SSL certificates. Basically, if you went to the website, there's no security certificate, your browser would give you a warning, and that was a big turnoff. If you use Cloudflare DNS, it can automatically provide the service of an SSL certificate for a website. That's why they use it. They had something on their roadmap which actually got approved and was marked as in development to create SSL certificates, and they decided they didn't want to do it. So even though it was approved and supposed to be in progress a few years back, they decided no. Use Cloudflare. If you're not using Cloudflare DNS, which is good, I like it, I use it, but if you're not using it, you're going to have to switch your DNS, at least for the domain that you're using for a hub, over to Cloudflare so that it can provision a secure, certificate for you. And that is the reason why. All right, so FluentCommunity, let's take a look at some of the pros. So you've got a WordPress base, which offers nearly limitless expansion opportunities. There are tons and tons and thousands or so of plugins that you can put on a WordPress site. There are a lot of integrations into the community itself, but they don't all need to be there. And there's no practical limit on user accounts. In other words, if you've got a WordPress server, you can create as many user accounts as you want. And if that becomes a problem, you need a bigger server, but you're going to really be into thousands of accounts before that, or before you have to do that. And let me give you an example. Taylor Swift runs her website on WordPress. She has one of the biggest websites around. WordPress can handle it if you have servers that can handle it. So don't worry that WordPress can't handle it. Worry about, is your server capable of doing it? And that's why I'm saying you want a VPS, something that can escalate and grow. And by the time you get to be billionaire status, Taylor Swift level, I'm sure you'll have other people to help you move on beyond that. But for right now, remember what I told you. Keep a VPS, not a shared hosting plan. So you can host discussions and courses inside. It integrates with a lot of the other WP Managed Ninja plugins, which I use plenty of them, and it's really great to see that in there. It's inspired by Circle for the user interface, which again seems to be the model that everybody else is following, and it's a beautiful model. You have a lot of opportunity that you can go in and change the colors and schemes. You can upload your own logos and covers, images. So you've got a lot of opportunity to customize this the way you want. And honestly, it's faster than anything else I've seen on WordPress. It's faster than when I used BuddyBoss. It was faster than when I used LearnDash. So they've really developed this with tight coding, and they avoided the WordPress database. So they've got something that really works well. It's not competing for resources. And quite honestly, it's less expensive than software as a solution alternatives. Before I get into is it better, I said it's frequently improved and updated. Like I said, they're pretty much updating their products monthly. And I've seen a lot of improvements on FluentCommunity since they launched it. So it was definitely a faster turnaround on adding new features and integrations and services than what I saw with the membership platform. All right. The cons, well, it requires WordPress knowledge to build the site. If you've never built a WordPress site, well, that's why Suburbia Press is here. And that's why I'm starting my community before long, is to help people who are entrepreneurs that want to build their own website. So if you don't know how to do that, this is something you need to know. And that's something that I want to help you with. So I'll be doing some videos on YouTube, and then I'll be launching the community to give you more specific hands-on kind of knowledge. It requires maintenance. And by maintenance, I mean, you've got to update the plugins. You've got to update WordPress when that comes out. It's pretty simple. But you have to maintain the site unless you hire someone like me who will go through and do the maintenance for you. There is no video hosting. It does integrate with other sources. So, for example, if you've got YouTube that you want to put videos in there, that works easily. Wistia and Vimeo work easily. You can also use iframes. So, for example, I'm using Bunny streaming service, and I upload my videos there. It's very inexpensive. And they give you an iframe code that you can embed, and then it plays the videos inside. So there are other alternatives besides the ones that just use the embed service, but it does not include video hosting. And you would not want to host videos on your website server anyway. So you want that coming from an external source. Performance, as I said, depends on your hosting account resources. If you go get a shared hosting plan, it's going to stink. If you go get a good VPS, like I said, a minimum 4 GB of RAM, 2 CPU cores, I pay $30 a month for that kind of server. That's going to do fine for you. There is no generated AI service or generative AI service. In other words, like the chatbot that I talked about in the membership site, they don't have that here. But you know what? Neither do a lot of other places. There are plugins that may be able to do some AI service for you on WordPress, but it's not part of FluentCommunity. And it's not as mature yet as other software as a service products. And I say yet because they are continuing to grow. They are continuing to develop and adding new features. Their roadmap is full. They keep pushing things out. And I'm not worried about the maturity because I've seen this with other products with FluentCommunity. They keep perfecting and adding to it. So I'm very pleased with WP Managed Ninja, and I have no doubt about how this is going to mature. All right, so with that in mind, which one should you choose? Should you choose a software as a service platform, or should you choose WordPress? It's really going to depend on how you like to work and what your budget is. If you don't want to do the maintenance, if you don't want to have to build the site quite that way, then one of these software as a service platforms may be the best option for you. I like the membership service, particularly now that they have community, and I'll have a link to that below. I also like FluentCommunity because I'm comfortable building with WordPress. If I look at the cost that I've spent, over the past few years on membership, and then I realize I've already got a lifetime account with FluentCommunity and all I have to do is spend $30 a month for my hosting platform, that's a no-brainer for me, particularly since I've already purchased lifetime accounts of the other WP Managed Ninja products that integrate with it. Even other products, I've got one called BetterDocs, which is a knowledge-based project. That's from a different vendor. Well, that integrates very well with Fluent Support, where people can go in and search for knowledge-based answers, and I can put that on my website. I've got nothing like that in these software as a service platforms. So I have much more flexibility to work with a WordPress site. So more flexibility, lower cost, WordPress. But you have to build it, you have to maintain it, or you have to pay somebody to do that for you. And that's really why you're seeing a higher cost on the software as a service. You're paying them to maintain it, to build it, but you have limited flexibility and limited options. You may or may not be able to add on what you want to do. As I showed you with the membership site for those boards that they were putting up there for roadmaps, that's not part of the platform. They're paying another service to do that for you. So if you take a look at the site I've got here, FeatureBase, this is the one that they're using. And it is really what you just saw. There's a place for feedback, for roadmaps, for change logs. They can do all of that, and even the help center. But how much is it? Well, you can start for free, but as usual, there's going to be pricing depending on what you want to do. So free, ideal for indie hackers, small teams. Starter, $49 a month. Need extra features and customizations. Growth, for growing startups, we need an on-brand experience. In other words, if you want to put your own branding, kind of the way the membership site did, then you have to at least spend this much. And business is going to give you more advanced features. And you can see as far as like team members, how many you get with the various plans. You get unlimited end users. And then as you scroll down, you can see what you get or what you don't get, depending upon the plan that you're using. So it is, from what I can tell, a very good service, but you're going to pay for it in addition to what you're paying for the membership site. And remember what we talked about at Circle. You have discussions, you have events, you have live, you have courses, you have chat, and you have members. The two things I see on Circle that I really don't see embedded into the other products are events and live. Now, you can get around that with certain things, but if you need to have those things, you can do that on Circle. You can get a calendar plugin that you could put on your website for FluentCommunity. That'll handle that. And your lives, well, maybe that calendar clicks off to your Zoom call or something. It's not built into the platform. But those are things you need to think about. In my case, I've decided I'm going to build my next community on the FluentCommunity platform. I'm going to be doing some videos here showing how that works. And inside the community, we're going to be talking about how to build things using WordPress and what you may want to look for. Everything from choosing your server, what the options are there, to working with themes, Gutenberg blocks, FluentCommunity, different plugins, and all that's going to be available. And I'm going to keep that at a low price. I haven't decided exactly, but what I'm thinking is I may launch that for roughly $10 lifetime access for the first people in there, and then eventually switch that to maybe $5 a month or so. Because I don't want to make it ultra expensive, but I do want to have a fee out there because first off, I don't want bots coming along and signing up and registering and causing mayhem. And also I've realized that people who pay something, even a small fee, behave a lot nicer than anybody who just comes along and wants to stir up trouble on the site because they can. So that's why I'm looking at that as a paid community. So with that in mind, I hope you got some value out of this, gives you something to think about. If you have questions about these various services, please let me know. Again, I will have affiliate links to some of these in the description below, and that helps me out a little bit and helps me provide more value to you. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.